Hello, my name is David Brett. I'm the editor of the New Westminster Times, coming to you again from downtown Toronto from the Prospectors and Developers Association Convention, the PDAC, which wound up today. And they came out with the attendance numbers, one of the largest attended events in their history. 32,155 registrants came through the place. It was definitely the largest in terms of trade show booths and other booths. They had the North Convention Center completely full and the South completely full. By all accounts, a very successful event. So I want to share some key takeaways from PDAC 2026. So one of the biggest differences that I've noticed from past PDACs is the interest of the federal government and other governments in promoting mining. And this is curiously a kind of silver lining for the mining industry from the Trump tariffs. Suddenly, the governments have decided that we need to be more self-sustaining and rely on our strengths, which everyone in the mining industry has known for a long time that one of our strengths is mining. Not only the talent to export our talent to the rest of the world, but to extract and focus on the mines and the exploration industry in Canada. However, another theme that was very much alive in the conference was this concept of critical minerals. So when the government talks about funding, and there was a number of funding announcements made by the Minister of Natural Resources, they call it the first and last mile project, and they're going to be targeting a number of key projects. One of the key themes was that much of the focus is on ore bodies that have already been outlined and that are very, very advanced and sort of on their way into the production pipeline. And the whole concept is, well, we need to get them approved and up and running quickly, and we need to solve this problem of this logjam of government regulation and bureaucratic folderol. So did they solve that? Not necessarily. And then you add into that problem of fast tracking, if you will, the streamlining of these projects, the problem of somehow ameliorating conflicts with First Nations and, bending over backwards to appease First Nations interests. This has the opposite effect towards streamlining. So streamlining is not just say, hey, First Nations, here's a bunch of money, or here, we're going to onboard you into the process right now. So that was a key feature of this. I think the other key theme that came out in this conference was that mining is really back. There's always been a sense here at this big conference, this premier mining conference in the world, that it takes a lot of entrepreneurial spirit to keep the mining industry going. Yes, we do have multinational companies that are very well sustaining, but there's a sense that the discovery process in mining is very exciting. And this entrepreneurial spirit that's driving the industry is very much alive and well. However, on the other hand, we have this very much alive and well spirit of environmental activism that's sort of pulling the strings behind the scenes. In other words, why is it so hard to get projects green-lit? Well, it's because governments are fearful of environmentalist backlash. So the sense that, well, because critical minerals, this new buzzword that is being used by the government, is sort of greenwashing the industry, that something was formerly considered to be a dirty industry that's causing environmental disturbance and potentially putting deleterious materials into the environment, is now the solution to the environmental cause of the day. We're going to stop global warming because we need critical minerals to electrify the economy worldwide. So those are the sort of colliding themes here. On the one hand, you have the traditional market forces that are driving metals prices. It's been understood for years that the price of copper rises and falls based on what's happening in China. Their demand for copper has been the driver behind many metals bull markets. So the development of the economy worldwide, also combined with the problem of diminishing supply chains. It's understood that many of the mines that have been supplying copper to the world are coming to the end of their life. The grade of the ore is coming down. The cost of labor is going up. So you have cost increasing, grade going down. People are saying that, okay, well, we need to find more mines and bring more mines on stream. And in particular for British Columbia, it's well known that the largest copper mines in Canada are in British Columbia. So you have people like David Eby and Mark Carney championing and sort of arm-waving about critical minerals and bringing them online. But at the same time, making this kind of pact with First Nations, or saying to the public, and this is where the themes here at the PDAC kind of overlap with the recent crisis over the Musqueam Canada decision that created this massive uncertainty over property rights in Vancouver, and all of the other, the Cowichan decision, the instantiation of DRIPA, and all of these things that are causing uncertainty. The problem is that people like David Eby want to fast track these mines into production, whilst also kind of playing the public with this concept that the only way to get these projects greenlit is to do these big, wealthy, cash-rich, over-the-top agreements with First Nations. Because he says, well, if you don't do it, if we repeal DRIPA, for example, well, all the projects will be canceled. So there's this kind of black and white situation evolving here. But nonetheless, for whatever reason, we're seeing gold, the price of gold, going up dramatically, and that has nothing to do with the greenification of the economy. We have the copper prices is been above $6 a pound, and then coming down and floating around $6 or $5.80. So the economics of the mining industry, particularly in Canada and around the world, are very strong. So key takeaway from PDAC 2026, many countries around the world, some very impressive booths from countries like Kazakhstan, Ireland, Sweden, Greenland was here, all of the provinces. Everyone is trying to pitch the investment industry here in Toronto, this global pot of money. They want that money to flow to their country. So will Canada be successful in meeting this challenge of developing all of these mines, not just sometime in the future, but quicker than ever? Well, I think there's a decision to be made by the leaders in this country whether or not this kind of woke agenda of addressing colonial harms, of, placating environmental activists. The problem is there's a certain attitude that comes from the top that we have to do everything responsibly. Well, of course everyone wants to do it responsibly and environmentally correctly, but there's a certain underlying messaging there that says that, well, we're not good enough. The miners really still are the bad guys who need to prove themselves to be good enough to be acceptable to civil society. So this is the kind of weird feeling you get that at conferences like this, these mining companies, these executives who achieve amazing things and done amazing things in their own countries and here in Canada are still have this kind of, oh boy, I hope, hope they like us. There's been so many years of kind of bashing of the mining industry, and frankly, the mining industry has been overlooked as an important part of the economy. So there's the silver lining that I think the public is finally coming around to see, that mining, in addition to the fossil fuel industry and the knowledge economy, that our resource economy, that the mining industry is a knowledge-based business. Yes, it is resources. And the other thing about mining that's very important to keep in mind is that you cannot offshore mining jobs. The mine is where it is. Many of them are in the north, in the places where Indigenous people live their lives. It's no coincidence that the largest employer of Indigenous people in Canada is the mining industry. So there's a lot to be celebrated about the mining industry, and that's why I think there was a record turnout here at PDAC 2026. So I thank you for paying attention to our dispatches from Toronto, and if you appreciate the reporting that the Westminster Times is doing, I invite you to support us on our website, newwesttimes.com. There is a button up in the right-hand corner that says support our work. If you would feel so inclined, we would really appreciate it. And we will be back with other reports and dispatches in the coming days. I thank you for watching.